the next thing we're going to be working on is the rims. And there's actually quite a few different rims that you can have, or at least that I've seen on different Lamborghini cars. So this is one of them. We'll just go through the uh, different types of rims real quick. These will be in the description. So this is the first one, and I'm just gonna go through each of the different rims, give you guys a look at them. And basically the reason I'm showing you all these is because I kind of wanted to get some feedback. Like we're gonna make this one. This is the one that is shown on the picture of the car that we've been using the whole time. Like these are the rims that it has. But I've seen all these different types of rims on various Lamborghini Gallardos. So basically what I wanted to know is, like, we're going to make this one for sure, but I wanted to see if people were interested in maybe making some of these other ones. Like, this is actually one of the harder ones. This would probably be one of the easiest ones. So if you want something easy, we could make something like that. And then, this is another, it's a little bit harder than the other one, but it's still easy, or easier. And same with this one, it's a lot of straight lines, it's not too complex. And then this one's it's a little different. So, I don't know, we're gonna make this one for sure, like I said. Just let me know how you feel about making these others. Like, do you want to make the others, or should we just forget about it? But we're just gonna make this one for now, and I'll just give you a quick look of what I started with. This is what I have so far with this part, and it actually ended up being quite high poly, so I'm not sure if we're gonna bake this down to a lower poly or not, or we're just gonna leave it like this. We'll just kind of decide on that later, I guess. And then this is the first one that I made. There are some things that I'd like to do differently on this one. Like, I don't like that these circles are not as round as I would like them to be, and I'd like this to be more rounded, so we're going to try to fix that. But overall, I think this turned out pretty decent. So we're going to try making it more like this, where it's nice and circular, and then we'll add in the rest of these details. To give you a look at what this is going to look like, this one is the one that I put onto a car real quick, or onto our car. And I made some basic rims, or basic wheels. So this will just give you like a preview of what it would look like on our actual car once we're done. Or at least this is the first one I made, so ours might be slightly different, but this is like what it looks like. And even this isn't finished yet, so this is just to give you an idea of what it will look like in the end. So we are going to get started. And we're done with all the pictures for the mirror, so we're just going to minimize them as we've done before by clicking the little triangle and then turning them off by clicking on the eye. And I'm just going to continue doing that until all of these are hidden and they're minimized, just like this. And we're going to add in one image, so just click once. And we're going to open and just go to wherever you've saved your stuff. And mine is this one. If you need to see the pictures of it, you can always click this button like I showed you before and it'll show you the pictures, but I know this is the correct one. So we're going to open this image, and we're going to go to a new layer. So I'm just going to go to this next layer, and we want to move our cursor back to the center, so we're going to do Shift S and then cursor to center, and we're going to press 3 on the number pad to go to side view. So now we have our picture. Something that's a little different with this one than the Tesla Model 3 rim tutorial that I made is there is a mirror, or you can make this into a mirror. Like if you were to draw a line right here, this side and this side would be a perfect mirror of each other. This is usually how most rims are. The Tesla rim was a little different in that the left side and the right side were actually not the same. Most of the time they will be the same, so you're going to want to be able to mirror it, which means you're going to want it to be lined up with this blue line. So you want the center point, which is going to be used for the mirror, to be lined up with this blue line. So what we're going to have to do, in this case, we're going to have to rotate it. And I want to use this spoke, so we're going to rotate it this way. So I'm just going to hold Shift, left click and drag, and rotate this until it's fairly straight up and down. And you also may need to move it some in the horizontal direction like this. I think that's gonna be okay. It's not perfectly centered here. You always do want to try to center it as well, but I don't think we're gonna be able to center it and get this mirror line to be perfect at the same time. So this is gonna be okay, I think. So there's two ways you can go about doing this. You can, or at least two ways that I like to go about doing it. One method is to start with a circle. So you would create a circle, you would go to create, you would do circle, and you would create this circle here, and then you would start bringing your geometry up and over. That's the first method. And the second method would be to just ignore these holes and add them in later. So you would instead create this circle, and then you would continue your geometry from there, and then you would add in this circle with a Boolean or some other method later. So we're going to try the second method, which is to start with this circle. And usually you want to start with circles because they're more difficult to add in later than any other shape. That's why I like to start with the circle. There are different ways to do it, but that's my way of doing it. So we're going to go ahead and create a circle. I'm going to leave it at the default vertex count, and then we're going to press tab into edit mode, then R, Y, and 90. And then press enter to rotate around the y-axis 90 degrees. And then we're going to press S to scale and bring it out. Since this is not a perfectly straight on shot, you're not going to be able to line it up perfectly, as you can see. So you just want to try to get somewhat accurate representation of this. One important thing is to have a vertex in the center here, because this is where the mirror point's going to be. So whatever circle you decide to use, whether if it's 32 vertices, it'll work out fine. But if you use a different vertex count, it might not work out as well. So when you're making a rim like this, really all you have to make is this slice of pie right here. So it'd be down like this, and over like this. So halfway in between this spoke, which is right here, and then halfway between the two spokes, and that will be the total area of the whole thing that you can use to mirror and then rotate around. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to create this this beveled edge that goes around like this, and to do that we're just going to press E to extrude, right click to cancel, S to scale it down. This will give it that beveled edge look. And then we want to create this inner circle, so we're going to press E to extrude, right click to cancel, S to scale it down. You can do Z for wireframe if you want, and then try to match the appropriate distance there. And according to this reference, this part of the rim needs to be pulled towards the car, so we're going to just move our view with the middle mouse and then pull this back some, and this should give us the shape that we want. If we go to object mode and then tools, enable smooth shading, and then tab into edit mode, press A and then control N to recalculate the normals, and now you can see that center piece that we have here. So I'm going to press 3 for side view and tab to go back into edit mode. So now we have that centerpiece. We're going to start working our way up and across, remembering that we only really have to go from here to here to get that little slice of pie that we can use to mirror and then duplicate and rotate. So we don't have to go any further than right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to select these two and E to extrude and bring this over like this, and Z for wireframe. I'm going to kind of follow in the center of this, like you have the outer part of this whiter area and then the inner part of this whiter area. I'm going to kind of go to the center of that because this is a little offset here. So instead of bringing it all the way to the edge, we're just going to bring it to the center, bring it closer than it probably would be according to the image. And then we can take these two, E to extrude, and do the same thing. We can just bring these over here. You always want to try to keep a straight line here, because this is going to be the basically mirrored part, or it's going to be the edge of this piece of pie, and it needs to be straight. If it's not straight, we can fix it later, so it's not totally important, and the odds of you getting it perfectly straight are pretty low anyway, so just do your best. So now select these four and then press F, and that will finish off this area. The reason we brought this over is because we want to be able to run an edge loop around this whole area to create this crease. And by bringing this over in this direction rather than straight up, if we do Control R now, you can see that we can add in easily a crease line to follow along this. If we had brought this up this way, we would not be able to. So now we're going to take these two and E to extrude, right click to cancel, and we're just going to drag this straight up. Again, this needs to be straight up so that we can mirror it. So this always has to be straight up. This center line needs to be straight up. And we're going to position this on the outer part of this bevel here. And then we're going to bring this one down with G. More into position over here. Again, sort of in the center of that crease line there. And then we want to add in some more detail to make this curve better. So we're going to do Control R, add in probably 2 or 3. I'm going to say 3 for now. and then just select them one at a time and bring them over until they match with the curve. You can either use the arrows or use G to move them over, whatever suits your needs at the time. And now what we want to do is add in another vertex so that we can create this curve here. And to do that, we're just going to do Control R and then left click, right click. And we want to take this vertex, press G, and bring it over to create that curvature. And we can also bring this one up some to keep more of a straighter angle, and then we can adjust the rest of these to compensate as well. Just try to keep a nice curvature. And then we can take these and E to extrude. This time, since this is basically a straight line, and if you look at it, you can tell it's pretty much a straight line. The easiest way to make sure it stays straight is just to have only 2 points at first, so this point and then this point, and that'll make it perfectly straight. So if we bring this one over with G and then adjust this point by itself and adjust this point by itself, that's going to guarantee that this is perfectly straight, so you don't have to worry about trying to make it straight later. And we didn't put these all the way to the end because there is, you can see this shading here, so this is also part of this where it's going to have a beveled edge here. So we want to put these just before the end where the start of the beveled shading is, so right here approximately. So now that we have this line all set, we're going to need some more points here to get this to be closer to the correct shape. So we're going to do Control R, left click, and then drag it up to approximately where you need it, and then adjust this point. We also need another edge loop here to continue on with this. So we're going to do Control R, left click, and drag it up to approximately the correct position. And then we need this to be more curved, so we want to try to keep a similar amount of vertices as we have here. So let's do Control R and then mouse wheel up. 5 cuts looks to be approximately the same spacing as the rest of it, so I'm just going to left click, right click, and then adjust these points one at a time. And actually on this point and these points, I was supposed to bring these out further because we're going to be running an edge loop on the inside. So I wanted these to be on the outside. So that looks good. And I think I'm just going to move this one a little to get a nicer curve. Once you're happy with it, we can add in this extra edge loop to create this crease line. So we're just going to do Control R and left click, and I'm just going to right click for a second. So you can see, because of the way we made our geometry, it's going to go all the way around like this, just like we want it. So now we can do Q, then E, then F, make sure the red dot's on this side, and give it this extra crease line to create that beveled edge. I think I may have put it a little closer last time, depending on how you want your beveled edge to show up. Like, the difference would be, so this is like the closer one. Okay, it's about how I have it now, but this is the closer one, so it doesn't give you as much of a beveled edge. It's a tighter crease. And then this one, well, I guess it's kind of about the same, but it gives a different result. It looks a bit different. So depending on how close your crease is, will change how your model looks. So now we want this other crease line that comes down like this. And to do that, we can't do Control R because you'll see we set it up to be for this crease line. So what we have to do instead is use the knife cut tool. So we're going to use K for the knife cut tool, and we'll just click here on this line, make sure it's yellow, and then left click and drag it down to here. Then make sure this line's yellow and left click, and then you can just drag it across. It doesn't matter if it's actually on this line or not, and left click, and then press enter to confirm the cut. And then Alt right click on this, and Q and then E, and drag these in until you are satisfied. Usually you want it to be similar distance to like here, so just keep it a similar distance. You'll notice we created this triangle here to get rid of it. We're going to select this one, shift select this one, Alt M, and choose that center. And then reposition this point with G so that it looks like it's still keeping a consistent distance like this and like this. That looks pretty good. So we can save it. And now we're going to press tab for edit mode. We're going to do Alt right click to select this edge, E to extrude, right click to cancel, and we're going to bring it back some on the x-axis. One thing I kind of wanted to point out is that it looks like it gets pulled down more here, and then as you get closer to this point it doesn't get pulled down much at all. So what we want to do with these points is leave these end ones where they are, and then so we're going to deselect these end ones, and then just progressively move them a little closer, and then deselect the two outside ones, move them a little closer, and deselect the two next ones, move it a little closer, deselect again, and just repeat that process until you are at the end and you have, this right here. Another thing we want to do is Alt right click on this, and we kind of want to move it over some. I'm just going to deselect these other ones though, and then do 3 for side view, Z for wireframe, and just move these over slightly. and then we can Alt right click on this inner one, deselect all the ones we just moved, and we want to move these other ones as well, so we're just going to do G and try to get a similar distance as the rest of it. Then we're going to Alt right click, E to extrude, right click to cancel, and going to do the same again. We're going to move these over again a little until they match up with this line, and we can move these other three as well up some using the same method as before. I actually forgot to deselect that one, so I just canceled it with right click and then made the correct adjustment. So we're going to Alt right click again, and we want to deselect these and deselect those two as well, and just bring these over, because what we want to do with these is create this line. This is actually a pretty straight line, so what I think we can do is do S, Y, and then 0 and press enter to make it a straight line. And then we'll position it about here so that the center point is with the center point. And then do R to rotate, and we can get the angle that we're looking for and then just pull it into position. We want it lined up with the outside of the crease line because we're going to be adding the crease on the inside later. So I actually think we need to pull these out more, so I'm going to select these three and just pull them out slightly. Now what we can do is Alt right click on this, E to extrude, right click to cancel, deselect these again, and just bring this over slightly. And then we're going to bring this one over a bit more and match these up a bit better. I think I need to slide all these, so I'm just going to use Q, slide these up, and match this up a bit better with the bottom of that. The only thing about this is I think it's supposed to be pretty straight too. Like from this angle it doesn't look like it's all that straight, but from here it's, you can tell it's supposed to be a straighter line, so we can make this a straighter line. And I just did Alt right click to get these other two that are in the center. I'm going to bring them up, and I think actually we're just going to bring them up to this other part right here. And just continue adjusting to make it straighter. But actually I think we need to move these in more. Even though by the reference it doesn't look like it on this angle, but I think we do need to move those slightly. And we're also going to need to move these back, so we're going to Alt right click and just bring these back as far as we think we need to. I think that's probably a reasonable amount right there. So now we want to create this inner part, so we're going to do Control R, left click, right click, and we're going to bring this up to this inner crease point. And I think that looks relatively good. We may need to bring this a little bit farther back, so just Alt right click on this, Alt Shift right click on this, and I think we can just bring this back a little to give that a bit more, to give this curve a bit more definition so it shows up a bit better. And we probably should move it back even a little further still, just give it, to try to match the distance you can see here. I think this is pretty far back. And then another thing is it actually has a pretty immediate drop off, so like this part here would need to be pulled in more too, rather than a gradual drop off like we have. So we're going to do Control R, left click, right click, and we're going to bring these closer to this area. So that we can create a more immediate drop off with these three. Maybe not that extreme, so I'm just adjusting this and we'll see how it looks. That looks okay. So I like that. That looks good. Now we're going to continue this over. I'm actually going to move these up slightly, I think, with Q. Just select them all with circle select and wireframe and do Q to slide them up. And then we're going to select these, actually, okay, so the top of this is like, it connects before the end of this, so like it connects like here. So we want to select these two, and then do E to extrude, right click to cancel, and bring them to the center. Okay, we're going to do S, Y, and then 0 to flatten them out on the Y axis, and then go to the top here, set it to global, left click on the Y value and set it to 0 so that it's perfectly zeroed on the Y value. And then reposition these in the X direction wherever you think they need to be. And that's pretty much it for that. And then what we want to do is add some depth to this area. I don't know if there's a good picture, so you can tell there's some depth to this here, and there would be on the back side too. We're actually just going to select this one vertex and then do it one at a time. We're going to E to extrude, right click to cancel, drag this back, hold control and snap to that vertex. Do the same for this one. Select it, E to extrude, right click to cancel, drag it back and snap it. And then select these four, press F to make a face. We're also going to make a face in this direction, but we're not going to need this face. So we're going to go to face select, select this face, do delete faces, go to vertex select, select these four vertices. So you should have these 4 here. F to make a face. Select these 4, F to make a face. And now we're going to press 3 to go back to side view. Go to face select. Select this face. Press I to inset. And do an inset similar to, you can see the shading here. You want to kind of do an inset similar to that. But we actually didn't need this face, so we're gonna do Control Z to get rid of that inset. We're gonna select this face, press delete, and choose faces. Then we're gonna select this face. 3 for side view, Z for wireframe, I to inset, B for border. And this is what I wanted, so that we have the shading will continue like this, and it'll curl around like this. So the other thing we want to do is kind of pull this out a little. We want to pull this one out a little on the x-axis to start to get that shading look. And that will be good for now. And now what we want to do is press tab for edit mode. And we want to continue this along this crease line. So we want to select this outermost point and E to extrude, and just continue this along this crease line here. We can add in more detail to the curvature of this as we go. We want to get basically at this point here and just use Control R to add in more curvature points to make sure that this stays a nice curve. That's going to be good for now. And then we want to also have this upper curve. So we can take these, E to extrude, right click to cancel, and just bring them up some and position them on this upper curve. And we can finish this off by selecting these 4 and pressing F to make a face. And we probably want to space these a bit better, the way that it kind of was to begin with, instead of moving it like I did. We could even add in one more point here to keep better spacing between all these edges, and slide some around to adjust. That looks pretty good. Now the next step is to bring all these in and down to create this inner line here. Because after this crease on both ends, everything starts to go in and then backward. So we're going to Alt right click, E to extrude, right click to cancel. We're just going to press S to scale them down so we know which ones are the new ones. And then start positioning these along this outer area. Trying to keep a nice smooth curve as usual. And I think I want to move all of these together. As usual, so we're just going to move these all over and reposition this one, and perhaps reposition this one and move some of these down as well. Using G twice to slide these down, just to continue with better spacing. We can create this little crease line here and give more detail here by doing Control R, left click and right click, and giving this better curvature. And the next thing we want to do is hold Alt and right click on this, and this needs to be pulled back. So all these need to be pulled back on the x-axis, so we're just going to pull these back until we are satisfied that we've pulled them back far enough. I think perhaps a little more would be good to start getting that shape of this blade area. Now let's press 3 on the number pad to go to side view, tab to edit mode, Z for wireframe. So we want to create a nice crease line here. So the way we're going to do that, we're just going to do Control R, left click, and we're going to drag it all the way up to meet on this part right here. And then left click, and we'll just deselect these and deselect these and bring these over slightly, and then Alt right click on these to get the rest of it again, deselect the ones we moved, and actually we'll just deselect all these two and just move these two by themselves with G. Until we have a similar distance, here to here. Then Alt right click on this again. We're just gonna deselect all those, the ones that we've moved already, and then just press G to move these down a little. Again, trying to keep a similar distance, and then we're gonna have to reposition these edge ones to be more appropriate. And reposition some of these as well. That looks pretty good. So we'll take a look. Now we got a better crease, but I think it's probably a bit too much. So we're just going to Alt right click on this and Q and drag it in a little so that it's a tighter crease. You can even maybe do not quite as much, but a little in between what we had. I think maybe a little closer. Looks a little better in this case. So another thing we can do is we can see we got this little crease line here at the bottom. So to make that, we're just going to select these three, press Q to slide them over closer. And then, like, you'll see the shading still looks okay. That's because this is kind of acting as like a shading improvement edge, but we don't want it in this case. So we're going to select these three, press Q to slide it up. That's going to make it have darker shading there, and it's also going to make it have darker shading where we want it to have darker shading. So we're going to take these and press Q until we get the shading that we're looking for there. Maybe move these individually until we can get something that we like a little better. That looks okay. So now we're going to save it. Just go to File, Save. We're going to try to make this look a little better, because if you look at it in the reference, like, it's got this nice shading around the outside. So we're going to press Tab, and I think what we want to do, I've already pulled it out a little. I think what we want to do is just select these vertices here, go to Edge Select, I guess, and select these edges here. And what we want to do is do Control B and then mouse wheel up once so we get 3 loops. And we'll see how this looks. So we'll just left click and we'll see how that looks. I think we got a little better shading there. You could even Control Z that, pull these out a little more, and then just repeat the process. Do Control B, mouse wheel up, until you get a result that you're more satisfied with. This looks okay, but I don't really like how dark the shading is down in this area, so I'm probably going to go back to the start and then do my Control B, just like that. That looks a little better, so that looks pretty good. One other thing I wanted to do is add in, like, you can see this area, it would have like a top to it. Like, we don't have a top to it, but it would have, you know, like a cap to it like this. So what you want to do is just Alt right click on this top edge, press F to make a face, and I want to flatten this out. Like, you can tell if you could take a look closely that it's not totally flat. But first we're going to go to Vertex Select, because I noticed we need to reposition some of these vertices, maybe this one as well. Just pull them out until this is a little straighter. And you may want to do the same on this side too. Select these and straighten this out a bit so it's more like that. And once you're happy, go to Face Select, select this face. So there's a relatively new feature, I believe. It's relatively new, at least. It's something I wish they had before, and I didn't know about it until recently. So select this face, go to Mesh, Clean Up. This is a new menu as far as I know. I've never noticed it before. So go to Clean Up and Make Planar Faces. That will try to make all the vertices on a single plane, just as if you went to create and you made a plane. It would be totally flat. This is actually totally flat, or if it's not, you can increase the iterations and that should make it totally flat as far as I understand. So That's a nice feature. Other software has had it. Other 3D creation software has had it for a while. And it's nice that Blender has it, so it's good to realize that it exists. So it's in mesh, cleanup, and make planar. It's a good thing to remember because it's a function that I kind of wish I had many times. So now what we want is we want to create sort of this beveled effect. So to do that, I'm just going to press I to inset and give it a bit of an inset. And then you can switch this to normal. And now it's going to be based on the face normal, and you can just pull this out so that now we have something that looks a lot similar to what this is right here. And you can even pull it out a little more if you want. It's really up to you how far out you want to pull this. But now you can see we got this shading issue. So to correct that, just do Control R and left click and drag this up to wherever you want it, and that will correct the shading. Looks pretty nice now. You got this nice shading. So that works out pretty good for that area. I'm going to change this back to global and press 3 to go back to side view and tab and go back to vertex select, because what we need to do is we need to take this vertex and make it follow in line, because this is going to be the mirror line basically. So we want to take this vertex and try to line it up better, straighter with this. And I'm not too happy with the shading here. So I think what I did was I either added a loop here or I added a loop here. I think it was probably here, but first I'm going to bring this one over. So select it, G to move it, bring it over, and then Control R to add in another loop here. Just left click, right click, and reposition this and reposition this a little. And that gives a bit better shading, not really perfect, but if you like it the way it was, you can always undo it. But I like the shading right here looks pretty decent, I would say. So that looks pretty good. Now the only thing really left to do is to mirror it and then duplicate it, and then we'll add in these holes after we do that. So what we want to do is delete all of this circle except for the points that are in between the mirror line. So we want to select this and then do C for circle select and get all these other points, leaving all of these alone, and then press delete, choose vertices. So now we have that little slice of pie that's going to make this entire rim. So we're going to do A to select everything, and in order to mirror this we need to change this to 3D cursor. So just left click here, left click on 3D cursor, then do Shift D, right click to reset the position, S, Y, and then -1. So it's going to scale it by -1, so it basically flips it perfectly as if it was a mirror modifier. And then we're going to press A twice to select everything. We're going to do W and then remove doubles. And you'll see this shading changed up here. That's because there were two sets of vertices on any of these center points. That's why we had to do W, remove doubles. And you'll also notice that the left side has darker shading than the right, and that's because the normals are messed up. So with everything selected, do Control N, and that will recalculate the normals. And before we go further, actually, I wanted to make this a little more curved as well. So we're going to do Control R, left click, right click, and then on this side we're going to do Control R, left click, right click, Z for wireframe, and you're going to select this vertex, C for circle, select, get all these, and then get all these as well. I'm going to change this to a median point, so make sure this is on median point, and just drag these up slightly to make this a little more curved. And then press A twice till you get everything. Change this back to 3D cursor. And if your 3D cursor ever moves to a different position, like if you left click, just do Shift S, cursor to center, and you're all set again. Now we're going to do, as one command, we're going to do Shift D, R, 72, and then press Enter, which duplicates and then rotates 72 degrees, which is the correct value for a 5-spoke rim. So now what we have to do is make these meet at the center because we didn't line it up perfectly by eye, and you're almost never going to get it perfect with your eye just because it's really hard, so don't worry about it. This is going to happen every time, so it's nothing to worry about. So what we need to do is go through one pair at a time and merge these at the center. So we're going to select this top one, Shift select this other top one, Alt M at center. It's going to merge them at the center. And then you're going to do the same for these two matching vertices. But instead of doing Alt M, we can do Shift R to repeat the last command, which was merge at the center. So you can select these two, Shift R to merge at the center. Select these two, Shift R, merge at center. And continue down here for each pair doing Shift R after selecting them. So select both of them, Shift R. If Shift R is not working, just do Alt M at center again, and then just continue using Shift R to merge these at the center. Now that these are lined up properly, we're going to have to mirror it again because these are still not lined up properly. So the easiest way to do this, or one of the ways I like to do it, we're just going to Alt right click on this separation line that we talked about before for the slice of pie. Alt and Shift and right click on the other separation line. Alt and Shift, right click on this line. In this case it didn't get the full edge loop, so we're going to have to do Alt and Shift and right click down here to get the rest of it. And then Alt and Shift and right click to get the last of it. And now press H. It's going to hide all of the edge lines. And now we're going to hide the rest of this piece. So we're going to select one vertex here, press L. If that didn't work, you can do Select Linked, and that will get this whole piece. Then press H to hide that. And we want to delete everything else. So we're going to press A, and then delete vertices, and now press Alt H to unhide this piece. And now we're back to having just that slice of pie, and we can create the whole thing out of this. So make sure this is selected by pressing A, then do Shift D, right click to cancel, S, Y, -1. It's going to flip it again, Then do A twice, W, remove doubles, Control N to flip the normals. And now as one command, do Shift D, R, 72, and press Enter. That's going to duplicate and rotate 72 degrees. And we want to repeat that action. So we're going to do Shift R to repeat, and then Shift R again, and Shift R again, and that's going to give us our whole rim. Press A twice, and again we're going to have to remove the doubles to get rid of any overlapping vertices, so press W, remove doubles, and if you need to you can do Control N to recalculate the normals, but you should be fine. So this is our rim, or at least the rim without the holes in it at this point. So now we're going to save it. Just go to File, Save.